I mean, there are some things you need to be aware of when it comes to your employer-sponsored plan in terms of, okay, do I leave it in the plan? Do I roll it out? We have reasons for this.
Right, and if we are talking about retirement, that's most likely not earned income at that point.
Sure.
So, if we're pre-Social Security age, prior to when or if you want to claim your pension, you are looking at most likely those, the IRA, the 401k, the investment assets as a bridge to get to later income sources.
Right.
And so the rule of 55 is a great benefit to access those retirement accounts prior to age 59 and a half without the 10% penalty.
Right.
So it's a 10% tax savings on the amount you take out of it. But there are, we got 5 things here that you need to be aware of prior to implementing something like that.
Right, because you mentioned it. Because I think a lot of people are aware of the 59.5% penalty where, if you take money out, there's some provisions in there. I'm not going to get too deep into that, but where they hit you with a 10% penalty, plus we got to pay tax. Can't get out of taxes. But you're right, there are 5 things that I want our viewers to know. So let's talk about the first one. And the first one is for public safety employees. And so this is for firefighters, EMTs, police officers. Folks that are in that type of work, their rules are a little bit different where they can when they turn age 50.
Right, so we're talking about rule of 55, they get rule of 50.
Right.
And it's accessing that 401k. The employer-sponsored plan, whatever line of work you're in, 401k, 403b, TSP, prior to 59 and a half.
Right. It's also make sure that you double-check and ensure that your plan does meet those requirements as well, too. Again, today is just a broad stroke across the board. So, okay, so that's number one. So that's for public safety employees. But the big one right here, you can withdraw only from the plan specific to that employer-sponsored plan or that employer. Let's talk about that.
And it's for those who have retired from their most recent employer after the age of 55 can access that plan. Mm-hmm. So a job, 2 jobs ago, you still have an old 401k hanging out there. You can't access that one. You can only access the most recent employer that you retired from.
Right.
So if you are considering going that route, you still have old 401ks out there. Review your plan, see if you can maybe consolidate those into your current employer's plan where you can access them.
Now again, folks, we're talking about people that have left their money inside the plan because, a lot of times what people would do is they would roll over their 401k to a traditional IRA. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. I want to be very clear. We are talking about your money inside of that employer-sponsored plan right now.
Correct.
That's a big one. Okay, next, you must leave your job the calendar year that you turn 55 or later, period.
Right, and it's not, retiring at 53 and then start withdrawing at 56.
Right.
It is you retire after age 55, you can access the assets under the rule of 55.
Right. And again, we already hit on this one. We kind of jumped, but that's fine. But the balance must stay there. That's just huge. People need to be aware of this. Now, this is a big one too because we work with some, like for example, some federal employees, and their rules are just different from the private sector. But sometimes people would take their 401k plan, just like I mentioned earlier, and they would roll that to a traditional IRA. If you do that, the rule of 55 no longer applies.
Yeah, it's very important depending on whatever the reason, if you were kind of forced into early retirement or you chose to do it, and you want all assets away from your prior employer.
Right.
Make sure you review the rule of 55 if you need that prior to 59 and a half.
So folks, I hope you picked up something there. If you are considering retiring early, look at this rule of 55. This is something you got to be careful. Because again, so many times what would happen is people would maybe roll their money out just because they read something or whatever. I hope it wasn't because of a financial advisor, especially if you need that money. We've seen it though. We've seen it. So again, it's just working with somebody that has walked this path before and they know what they're doing. That's something that I think the big takeaway when it comes to the rule of 50.